From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
In another big hour here, the Steve Gruber Show kicking off another brand new day. Fat Tuesday for you all, right? Lent starts tomorrow for those of you that observe such things. Fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom and making sure you have the right person right next to you when it matters the most. Let's get rolling. There are three big things to cover this hour. Here they are. Number one, AOC bombed on the world stage after being asked about Taiwan. And a wealth tax on successful Americans so badly that some in her own party are turning on her. Number two, the Save America Act is a pivotal piece of legislation to protect the integrity of American elections, protecting them from fraud. But Democrats are fighting this common sense legislation every step of the way. And number three, I've got a bone to pick with these so-called progressive Democrats who think they can remake America in the image of their utopian fantasies and will take AOC, the self-styled champion of the working class who just called for the expeditious rollout of a wealth tax at the Munich Security Conference. Here she is.
So when you run for president, are you going to impose a wealth tax or a billionaire's tax?
I don't think that I don't think that anyone, and that we don't have to wait for any one president to impose a wealth tax. I think that it needs to be done expeditiously.
Let me tell you this. AOC as the president of these United States would be more disastrous than a wealth tax. She's out there preaching that we need to eat the rich, redistribute everything, and build some kind of socialist paradise where the government controls the purse strings. But let's call it what it is. A tired rerun of a system that's failed everywhere it's been tried, everywhere. A system that's collapsing right now in places like Cuba, Venezuela, and heck, it even toppled the mighty Soviet Union despite their delusions of grandeur. These Democrats are peddling poison. It's time we expose it for what it is. I meant what I said yesterday. I believe Cuba is going to fall, and soon. If you want a real-time horror show of what happens when you go full throttle on this collectivist nonsense, look no further than the island just 90 miles south of Florida. Marco Rubio correctly explained the problem with Cuba in an interview with Bloomberg while he was in Munich. Here's what he said.
Going in failure. Cuba's fundamental problem is that it has no economy, and its economic model is one that has never been tried and has never worked anywhere else in the world. Okay, it doesn't have a real economic policy. It doesn't have a real economy. Not to forget, put aside for a moment the fact that it has no freedom of expression, no democracy, no respect for human rights. The fundamental problem Cuba has is it has no economy, and the people who are in charge of that country, in control of that country, they don't know how to improve the everyday life of their people without giving up power over sectors that they control. They want to control everything. They don't want the people of Cuba to control anything. So they don't know how to get themselves out of this. And to the extent that they've been offered opportunities to do it, they don't seem to be able to comprehend it or accept it in any ways. They would much rather be in charge of the country than allow it to prosper.
You see, everyone claims to be for the people until they're actually in power, which is what has happened in Cuba. Cuba's teetering on the edge of collapse, total collapse. It's not pretty. They've got no fuel, no tourists, no cash. The whole place is grinding to a halt. Just this week, they had to suspend their annual cigar festival because of a crippling energy crisis sparked by dwindling oil supplies. Oil imports from Venezuela dried up after Washington finally toppled that socialist regime 6 weeks ago, cutting off Cuba's lifeline. Blackouts are rampant. Food shortages are everywhere. And the United Nations is warning of a possible humanitarian collapse and crisis. The government is rationing fuel, cutting electricity to a couple of hours a day, and even the tourism revenue, once a cash cow, is all but gone. People are fleeing in droves, some 5,000 Cubans hitting the high seas or borders just to escape the misery. And get this, Mexico is having to send humanitarian aid ships to keep the lights on, literally. This isn't some abstract theory. It's a death rattle of a communist experiment that's been suffocating under its own weight for decades. And Rubio says it's going to continue until Cubans are granted economic freedom. Here's more.
Is there any kind of off-ramp for the regime? I mean, previous ones, when you negotiated with Venezuela, you said if they agreed with various things, it would be possible to continue.
There is. I mean, look, I think you have to...
What could the Cuban regime do?
Well, I'm not going to tell you or announce this in an interview here, because obviously these things require space and time to do it in the right way. But I will say this, that it is important for the people of Cuba to have more freedom, not just political freedom, but economic freedom. The people of Cuba, and that's what this regime has not been willing to give them, because they're afraid that if the people of Cuba can provide for themselves, they lose control over them, they lose power over them.
Yeah, that's right. Government handouts are nothing more than a noose around the neck of the poor, waiting to be tightened when the government sees fit. Cuba's leaders thought they could defy reality with their central planning and state control, but reality always wins. The island is facing its worst crisis yet, a socio-economic catastrophe that's got them cornered into desperate dialogues with the U.S. That's the model AOC and her crew want for America. They can pack their bags and head south themselves and check it out. But Cuba's not alone in this hall of shame. Remember Venezuela? Once the richest country in South America, fifth richest in the world, blessed with oil wealth that could make kings jealous. And then Hugo Chavez and his successor, Nicolas Maduro, came along with their Bolivarian, that is, revolution, nationalizing industries, price controls, wealth distribution, the whole socialist playbook. And what happened? Hyperinflation, which turned into empty shelves, mass starvation and millions fleeing that country, hospitals without medicine, gangs running the streets. It's failed every way possible, plain and simple. And the Soviet Union, for 7 decades, they strutted around like they owned the future with their 5-year plans and collective farms. They believed in their own immortality, convinced that communism was the inevitable march of history. But what did we see? Breadlines, gulags, economic stagflation. And finally, in 1991, the whole empire crumbled like a house of cards that it was. Mikhail Gorbachev tried to patch it up, but it was too late. The people had had enough of the lies and the poverty. These systems don't work because they crush the human spirit, stifle innovation, and reward bureaucrats over builders. Now let's talk about these Democrats pushing the same garbage. AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and their ilk. They love to play the victim card, claiming they grew up poor, scraping by to justify their war on the wealth. But pull back the curtain and you'll see something different. They've benefited immensely from the very capitalist system they demonize. AOC, for example, born in the Bronx, sure, but her family moved to upscale Yorktown Heights when she was 5, where the average resident makes well over 6 figures. Her dad was an architect who ran his own small business, classic American entrepreneurship. AOC went to Boston University, graduated with a degree in economics and international relations. Hello, that's the fruits of a free market education system. She's not from the projects, she's from the suburbs, leveraging the West's opportunities to launch her career. And Jasmine Crockett, daughter of a reverend in St. Louis, she didn't claw her way out of poverty either. She attended a prestigious private school like Mary Institute and St. Louis Country Day, where tuition is over $30,000 a year, and then Rhodes College for Business and Law School at the University of Houston. These women didn't starve under oppression. They thrived under Western privilege. Free enterprise, private property, individual liberties, but now they bite the hand that actually fed them, pushing policies that would destroy it all. I'll continue with more after this. All right, let's jump right back into it. AOC criticized Marco Rubio's Munich address and his calls for an embrace of Western culture. She attacked him for one of the best speeches I've heard in recent years. Here she is.
A lot of what we talk about when we talk about a class-based internationalist perspective also means ending the hypocrisy towards the global South.
AOC can't make her mind up because too many times she claims there's nothing more important than embracing some culture, Latino, Black, and the list goes on and on and on. But she doesn't want anyone embracing Western culture. Her critique of Western culture as thin is unbelievable. Bishop Robert Barron has issued a statement that calls her out on it. Here's part of what he said.
First of all, that Western culture, as Rubio invoked it, is thin. The culture that gave us all those great figures, that gave us the rule of law, that gave us respect for the rights of the individual, that gave us our democratic political system, that gave us the university system, that's thin. And your argument is, well, because cultures always change. Well, that's a banality. I mean, of course, cultures are alive, they change and evolve. Doesn't mean for a second we can't identify the key elements within a culture that gives it its character.
Yeah. There's something even more devious about AOC's critique. She's pretending like her ideas are common sense, but they're not. She's quoting someone else, someone controversial. Here's more from the bishop.
But also this, to characterize culture as thin is a Marxist move. Marx said that culture is simply an epiphenomenal superstructure on top of the economic substructure. And don't be distracted, therefore, by the culture. That's just protecting the economics at bottom. Well, again, listen to her. Let's pay attention to the material conditions and to class struggle. Again, that's the Marxist playbook. What's worrying me, everybody, is the extent to which political leadership on the left in America is becoming, it's unapologetically Marxist. The mayor of New York City, the warmth of collectivism. He's calling for the confiscation of private property, of seizing the means of production. All language right out of the Communist Manifesto. Might I encourage followers of, Mayor Mamdani and AOC, talk to some of them. They're still alive, some of them. The people that fled Marxist tyranny in Europe. People laboring under it to this day in Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela.
Yeah, I've talked to those people. They should as well. I've heard from them. Just the other day, I met a woman from Colombia. She says she wishes the United States would do the same thing in her country they did in Venezuela. I heard the same from a woman I know from Mexico. I wish America would come and crush the cartels, she said. The people always want freedom. AOC, Mamdani, Jasmine Crockett, they don't know what they're espousing. Or maybe they do. But they've never lived under the boot of real socialism, the surveillance states, the secret police, the forced labor. They've sipped lattes in Brooklyn cafes, tweeted from iPhones made by capitalist innovation, by the way, and climbed the ranks in a democracy that lets them speak freely. A wealth tax? That's just the gateway drug to full-on government control where the state decides who gets what, and innovation dies a painful death. It's a philosophical pipe dream. This is just old-fashioned communism dressed up as equity or justice. But history screams the truth. It leads to tyranny and poverty and mass murder every single time. In the end, freedom wins every single time. Look at America, built on capitalism, rugged individualism, ingenuity, and liberty. We as a country have lifted billions out of poverty worldwide through free markets. The Berlin Wall fell not because of some socialist surge, but because people yearned to breathe free. Venezuela's people are rising up. Cuba's on its knees begging for relief, and the Soviet ghosts haunt only the history books. MAGA knows this. Make America Great Again means protecting the system that works, not importing failure. So to AOC, Crockett, and the rest, wake up. Your ideas are as bankrupt as the regimes you admire. Freedom isn't a dream. It's the reality that built the greatest nation on earth. That, my friends, is a fact. Did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity, and cyber criminals are targeting it right now with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. House alarms, doorbell cameras, and deadbolts won't work against these thieves because they're not after your stuff. They're after the equity you've built up by paying your mortgage for the last several decades. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers, thieves, can transfer the title of your home into their name using a one-page document they file at the county and then take out loans against it or even sell it behind your back. The scariest part, you won't find out until collection or even foreclosure notices show up in your mailbox. But by then, the damage has been done. The best way to protect your equity is with Triple Lock Protection from my friends at Home Title Lock. Triple Lock Protection is 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and God forbid if the worst does happen, restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. You can check on your home's title today and make sure you're not already a victim. Use the promo code Gruber at HometitleLock.com to make sure you're still having the title in your name. You also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million Triple Lock Protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title. Urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com right now. Use the promo code Gruber. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. I mentioned the death of Jesse Jackson here a moment ago. He's not the only one to pass away. Jesse Jackson died at the age of 84 this morning. And Robert Duvall, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Robert Duvall from the Godfather movies and Apocalypse Now, dead at 95. Won an Oscar for his role in the 1983 film Tender Mercies. Don't know if I saw that one. Robert Duvall was brilliant. One of the best ever. So he's gone too at 95. I'll take a break and be right back. It is The Steve Gruber Show. Well, will Donald Trump get a fourth Supreme Court justice pick? Maybe. Rumors swirling again that Samuel Alito is going to call it quits here shortly. He's the second oldest justice behind Clarence Thomas. He joined the High Court 20 years ago. Usually a good milestone in which to retire, says Melissa Murray, a law professor at New York University at NYU there. He also has a book coming out in October, and if he's going to step away, he doesn't want to risk the midterms. If Alito wants to step down while Republicans control the Senate, he probably doesn't want to take that gamble. Now, look, I don't think the Republicans have much of a chance to lose the Senate, but you never know. In a midterm election, you could. And then you'd have no chance of getting it done because they would go crazy. And Republicans don't want to hold a confirmation hearing in the fall of an election year, so if he announces now, you do it now. The decisions are in for June. This is the window to do it. Wouldn't that be interesting? Donald Trump getting yet another Supreme Court justice, making it 4, meaning his reach would be, well, it would give him a legacy. I don't know the last time we had a president get 4 Supreme Court justices. Many of you have struggled to lose weight. You lose it, then you gain it back. What if I told you it's not your fault? It's not points, shakes, or living at the gym. If it was willpower, you'd already be done. What if I told you your metabolism isn't broken, it's just not turned on? Just not turned on. Go to gruberhealth.com, book a free consultation, see if it's a good fit. It's all natural. You eat real food. No exercise is needed. Turn your metabolism back on naturally and learn the strategies to keep it off. I did this in 2018, and I kept it off. All right? My Pure Health. You can go to gruberhealth.com and find out more right now. gruberhealth.com, the place to find out more. Get your free consultation anywhere in America. Anywhere in America. They'll send a scanner right to your home, and they'll get you turned around. It works, my friends. gruberhealth.com. You can find out more right now. I'll take a break and be right back. All right. You know, I heard Tim Burchett say here this week, he's seen a lot of these videos and still pictures of the Epstein files. He says, they are so evil that once you see these things, you will never be the same. Tim Burchett, the congressman from Tennessee. So evil, you'll never be the same. My next guest is Yanya Kellick, senior editor with the Epoch Times, host of the program American Thought Leaders, and author of the new book, Kill to Order. And apparently the Epstein files, as disturbing and awful as they are, could possibly pale in comparison to what the Chinese Communist Party does. Jan, welcome back to the program.
Steve, thanks so much for having me back. And I think you're absolutely right. This is what the Communist Party is doing, is at that kind of level which you're suggesting. It's a large-scale murder for organs industry.
A murder for organ industries. Now, we've heard these horror stories, and I'm sure some people go, oh, come on, that couldn't possibly be true, but it is true. If you're a high-ranking member of the Communist Party and you need a kidney or a heart or whatever it may be, you place an order. And then that order is filled, isn't it?
Well, and this came out in this hot mic moment. Like, Steve, I've been looking at this issue for 20 years, and it had never occurred to me. I mean, it's a huge business. We estimate it's about a $9 billion a year business. But during this hot mic moment, see, they actually have an elite longevity project over there. It's called Project 981, which has a target of a 150-year lifespan. And when Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin were talking in Tiananmen Square some months back, they just kind of revealed the reality that this continual organ transplantation, as Putin said, is there to possibly achieve immortality. And it just dawned on me for the first time, yeah, it's a $9 billion a year industry, but what if you're a super elite in China and you have unlimited on-demand organs available to you forever? That's worth a lot of life if your morals are that loose that you can handle having people murdered for your organs.
Carved up for your own vanity. Carved up, literally, murdered. Of course, the abuse of the Uyghurs has been fairly well documented, although ignored by the United Nations and too many people as well. But is that where these organs come from? Is it from Uyghurs or is it elsewhere?
So it started with the Falun Gong. Back in 1999, the Chinese regime and Chinese Communist Party always has an external enemy, which is always America, by the way, and also always an internal enemy. In 1989, it was the students. There was a Tiananmen Square massacre. It crushed the student movement. 1999, there was a very popular movement. 70 to 100 million people were practicing the spiritual discipline, Falun Gong. They decided to crush that, and they dehumanized those people and incarcerated a ton of them. And then 14 or 15 years later, when no one really did anything about that, as they grew their transplant industry geometrically during that time, they added the Uyghurs, okay? And they dehumanized them and incarcerated 1 million of them. So as far as we know right now, it started with the Falun Gong, the Uyghurs that were added around 2014, 2015 at scale. And now my huge concern is, as the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of Christians is ramping up, with the Zion Church pastor Ezra Jean being arrested and actually Catholic clergy being put under control, I'm worried that Christians are going to become the next group now, as we do nothing. But we actually have a chance to really do something now.
And what is that? What can we do?
Well, number one, we can actually end our complicity in all this. And here's what we do. We actually train some of these surgeons. We fund some of the universities that are involved in transplant research. And by the way, there's a paper in the American Journal of Transplantation that surveys the Chinese transplant literature, okay? Out of 2,000 papers, they found 70 examples of very clear, publicly available violations of the dead donor rule, meaning that the people were actually killed by having their organs extracted, and that's publicly available. It's so common over there that it's written into the publicly available scientific methods. So we can actually stop all cooperation with the Chinese transplant industry. We can do that at the administration level. We can do that at the congressional level. There's legislation that actually has passed the House unanimously, near unanimously, 2 pieces. It just needs to be done in the Senate now. And at the state level, there's stuff going on, and there's grassroots efforts. So there's a ton just on the part of America having no business with this at all. And then there's more we can do, I can tell you.
Well, why is it that I see the people that you mentioned, Falun Gong, Christians, Uyghurs, basically good folks not causing any trouble? They're peaceful people. Why are the peaceful people the ones that are put in the crosshairs here for this evil undertaking?
Well, so one of the things that I talk about in the book, it's one piece of it, okay, in Kill to Order, is about this organ transplant industry and how it works. But the other part is how it's sort of the perfect lens into communism, how to understanding how the whole system actually works. And let me just give you the punchline, okay? In communist societies, the number one priority is the supremacy and survival of the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, number one thing. So, and they use a kind of greater good medical ethics principle. Okay, and this is why you always get these mass atrocities, because human dignity, individual human life is not worth a lot. And this Chinese Communist Party demands that you actually, pledge fealty to it. You can either do it because you really believe in it, or you can just do it performatively. But if you don't pledge fealty, if you have another belief system, like you're a Falun Dafa practitioner, and these people are very hard to brainwash, okay? Truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, they're living that very seriously. Uyghurs, they're very committed to maintaining their culture. And similarly with the house church Christians, there's been kind of a boom of Christianity in China as well. And these people do not want to put Xi, how you've probably seen these pictures of altars, in churches and so forth, where there's a photo of Xi put up there, beside the cross or whatever. They do not want to basically put something else, the Communist Party, ahead of God, ahead of the divine. That's the reason.
Interesting. So again, we do very little about any of this. The United Nations Human Rights Council has people like China and Iran and the other worst offenders on the Human Rights Council, which is an embarrassment to the United Nations, a failed organization in my estimation. So it doesn't seem that the United States Senate will do much. Even if they did, would it make a difference? And Xi, I understand, is in failing health. So what is his situation in all of this? I'll give you the last word.
Well, just let me speak to the Senate side, okay? Because I think that's very important. The Senate could pass legislation, two pieces of legislation. One is called the Falun Gong Protection Act. It doesn't just protect the Falun Gong, it protects anybody who's in danger of being organ harvested. How does it do it? It puts strong sanctions against people who are involved in this, okay? And why does that make a difference? Because a lot of these people over there, with the economy being in a very chaotic state, they always have exit strategies somewhere. And some of those exit strategies are to America. And if they're going to get strongly sanctioned, they're going to lose that exit strategy, okay? So that's going to get a bunch of people who are super elites are going to get basically stop being involved in this. It'll reduce the scale of it. There's another piece of legislation called the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act that's broader, for forced organ harvesting broader around the world, but it includes China as well. They could easily pass that. This is a nonpartisan, as bipartisan issue as you can possibly imagine. Just get these done.
Yeah. Terrible story. The book, again, is called Killed to Order. Jan Jekielek from Epic Times. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Steve. KilledToOrder.com. That's where you can get it. Comes out March 17th.
There you have it, sir. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. I'll take a break and be right back with Nick Hopwood on your wealth after this. Well, all right, let's talk about it. The economy, in some ways, looks pretty good. Other places, not so great. Inflation down to 2.4%. The jobs number last week blowing away all predictions from the so-called experts, 130,000. And if you added in the 42,000 taken away for government jobs, the actual number, 172,000 in the private sector. No lazy money with Nick Hopwood. He leads the team of certified financial planners at Peak Wealth Management. They oversee about $500 million in assets under management. It's privately held. That's important to know. Nick, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Steve. Glad to be back.
He doesn't have overlords to answer to, does Nick? Just himself and his wife, of course, right? Which is important. All right, so let's talk about this. The energy is looking pretty good. The Magnificent Seven, on the other hand, not looking so good. The market, though, over 50,000. What are you seeing right now?
Well, Steve, everyone's been obsessed with the Mag 7 for the last decade or so, like Amazon, Apple, Meta, NVIDIA, Tesla. On average, those are down double digits from their October high, and software is even worse, down over 30% on average from the recent high. But like you said, the Dow's holding strong, energy is breaking out, global value is breaking out to the upside, real estate, industrials. So there are opportunities here. But I don't know if last year's or last decade's playbook is going to work for the next decade.
I don't know either. But I look at the inflation number. It's good. But yet the Fed does nothing. In fact, they're not even rate cuts expected until the second half of the year. If there was a rate cut this month or next month, it would supercharge the economy, would it not?
It would, because it would be an unexpected rate cut, like you said. So the market bakes in these expectations, and that's how it gauges its that's how it reacts to the news. So if it was a surprise, it definitely would be to the upside. But look, GDP, the estimate's at 3.7%, according to the Atlanta Fed. The February inflation is holding strong at 2.4 again, just like last month. So I don't necessarily think that the market is demanding any rate cuts. And with Kevin Warsh coming in, I think it's comfortable with him as a dove.
And when does he come in?
Gosh, I think it's May. I could be wrong, but I think
sometime not too long in front of us. So we see, I just saw AOC over in Munich saying we need a wealth tax now on who knows what her wealth tax would be. But these ideas are just terrible. Then I see the Dutch Parliament here, one of your notes, passing taxes on unrealized gains. Oh, you went up on paper, pay us taxes on it. You didn't get any money. You got to change it on your computer screen. Oh, we'll tax you on that unrealized gains. There's a push here in this country to do the same thing. This is reckless, isn't it?
I think it is. I don't think this is going to end up well. Starting in January of 2028, in Netherlands, there's going to be a 36% unrealized gains tax. So if you have a stock that you bought for $1,000 that goes up to $2,000, even before selling it, you're going to have to pay tax on it. And then if it goes back down to $1,000, now you're underwater, literally. So it's a really bad situation. The proposal in California for the billionaires tax, which supposedly is only a one-time tax and a lower rate of 5%. That's out there. But look, we've got allegedly over $1 trillion of net worth leaving California already for Texas and Florida and the like for protection against this potential law. I don't know if this is going to pass, okay, but in Netherlands, it's virtually a done deal.
Yeah, so here's a story that's been sitting on my desk for a couple of days. I haven't even mentioned it. Mark Zuckerberg, the latest California billionaire to leave. He's going to Florida. Zuckerberg's out. They're all out, right? These are some of the highest net worth individuals, not just in this country, in the world, saying we're not going to pay you your taxes, California, and they're trying to figure out how to tax them even after they leave. This is so obvious. You can look at Cuba. You can look at Venezuela. You can look at the Soviet Union. It's what we've been talking about all day. You tax the rich until there are no rich no more, and then everybody's in, somewhere not good. I mean, is that not the lesson of economics for millennia?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to move to Florida, or they're going to have to give away their money through the Trump accounts like Michael Dell. And basically, those are your two options.
Yeah, and good for Michael Dell for dealing that, by the way. Realized capital gains on mutual funds and capital gains distributions are also going to be a problem for folks on their 2025 tax returns, you say. Why is that?
Yeah, Steve, there are a lot of people who own mutual funds in their brokerage accounts, and we preach about asset allocation, as we should, but we don't talk enough about asset location. So if you want to own mutual funds in your IRA and Roth IRA, go for it. The capital gains are not going to make a difference. But if you own mutual funds in your taxable brokerage account and they're declaring capital gains every year, even though you're not selling yourself, it's creating a tremendous tax drag. A new client of ours just brought over their accounts and they have over $150,000 of distributed capital gains from mutual funds. This is going to cost him over 50 grand in taxes here in April, and he didn't even transact any transaction to sell anything. So it's kind of like one of these wealth taxes, but different.
Just to be clear on that, if you're not paying attention, you have an advisor that's paying attention. Money's moving around in your accounts, and all of a sudden you owe $50,000. I mean, hello, right? That's what you're talking about, being unaware of what's happening.
That's right. So you need to own ETFs in your brokerage account because they don't have this capital gains problem. And if you'd like us to take a look at it, we're happy to provide a second opinion.
Yeah. A QR code on your screen right there. Nick will give you a free evaluation. Just click on that right there. Peak Wealth Management is the place to go with Nick Hopwood. Nick, I always appreciate you coming in. You know, I feel good about it, and then I don't feel good about it, and then I feel good. The economy, it's like a roller coaster for me, Nick. I'll be honest. Anyhow, click the QR code. He'll make you feel better about that roller coaster ride. I promise you. All right? Nick Hopwood, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much. PeakWM.com, too, by the way. PeakWM.com. Good man there. And he doesn't work for private equity. He works for you. I'll be right back. All right, so we were here on the program, and we had Brock was weighing in, and Anthony was weighing in. I don't know if Ivy did or not. I don't remember, but we were here talking about the best fast food hamburgers here a few days ago, right? I like the Whopper. I just tell you, I eat one a year. Maybe not even that many. Five Guys, pretty good, but wildly expensive. Well, if you like Wendy's, you might have to hunt a little bit harder to find that Wendy's burger. I think Brock might have said he liked Wendy's.
I do.
Yeah, see, there you go. Well, bad news, Brock. They're closing hundreds of their restaurants. Hundreds.
Uh-oh.
In the October through December quarter, the fast food giant reported same-store sales declined over 11%. So they're going to close under. You need to buy more Wendy's because they're closing only underperforming restaurants, Brock. If you could help them overperform,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have this problem.
They're expensive, too.
Yeah,
Not
so
like
they
Five
closed.
Guys, but they're expensive, too.
They closed 28 stores in December of 25. And, I mean, they've got almost 6,000 restaurants. Maybe as many as 360 stores are going to close before mid-year this year. So there you go, Wendy's. Where's the beef? It ain't here. So Wendy's... that's weird to me, though. I thought all these fast food restaurants, they continue to grow. They do their traffic studies. They look at everything. What's the pattern of this intersection? How many people come through? And they still get it wrong. The biggest thing, though, were all those drugstores, all the Walgreens and all those stores. They build hundreds of them, and then away they go. They're gone after the mom and pop pharmacy's been destroyed. Sometimes I wonder about who's running these things, don't you? I do. Anyhow, Wendy's is in trouble and closing a bunch of stores. I don't know if they're in trouble. 6,000 stores minus 400. They'll still have 5,500 stores, give or take. You can still find a Wendy's hamburger. Brock, that's good news, so you're not going to be heartbroken. Don't want you to be upset. Let's see. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to have Michael Chamberlain, the director of the Project to Protect the Public Trust. Misconduct is rampant. Rampant. Oh, the Epstein files. Tim Burchett saying, once you've seen these things, you'll never be the same. Oh, evil is real. Problems are real. We'll talk about it coming up. And don't forget to join us on YouTube. There's the QR code right there. Join us on YouTube and check out the new podcast, Forgotten America.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, and welcome back to it as we get into it. Welcome back to the foxhole of freedom, fighting for you every single day, digging deeper to give you insight and analysis you won't get anywhere else. Here are three big things this hour. Number one, the now very strange case of the missing 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. TMZ says they have received a fourth letter now saying she's in Mexico, but nobody seems to know. I remember I said at the beginning, my money was on the gardener. I think that's where my money stays right now, is on the gardener. Number two, CBS News not renewing its contract with the faux news reporter Anderson Cooper after 20 years of his schlock reporting. Maybe there's still hope for one of the big three networks. And number three, I do want to start with something that was not on my list here. I just want to do this because this is really important. The mass shooting yesterday in Delaware, I believe it was, Rhode Island, excuse me. There was a shooting at an ice arena. You might have seen it on social media. Okay? A man opened fire, killed his wife, injured two of his children. Robert Dorgan, 56, accused of opening fire at a Pawtucket ice rink, killing at least two family members. So one of the kids apparently died. Injuring three more in what authorities described as a family dispute. Dorgan then shot and killed himself. Himself is the operative word here because Dorgan called himself Roberta. Dorgan was a transgender individual who was at conflict with his family over the fact that he was trying to pretend that he was a woman. Here we are again, transgender violence. These are mental problems, folks. These are mental problems. These are issues that have real-world consequences, not just with the crazy butchering of children, but with real people. You look at the Nashville shooting at the school. You look at some of these other recent shootings. The shooting at that Canadian school where 9 died. These murderous transgender individuals, we need to stop embracing and coddling mental illness and do something serious about it. We'll have more on this coming up tomorrow. I move on now to a story I doubt you've heard because it seems the mainstream media doesn't think one of the biggest environmental disasters in American history is worth telling you about. It's ongoing, by the way. Apparently, the climate change orgy crowd also doesn't think it's worth talking about. I mean, why would they report on a dark blue state killing millions of fish, poisoning billions of gallons of water on the East Coast? Have you heard about this? Apparently, most people have. It doesn't seem to rise to the level of concern. Of course, if it wasn't Maryland and it was, say, like the state of Florida, they'd be telling you about it nonstop. What am I talking about? Hundreds of millions of gallons of raw sewage pouring into the Potomac River from Maryland, and has for the last several days and is still going. Listen to this.
If you look at the river, it's pretty clear and blue, but this stretch right here is brown and gray, and you can see little shreds of toilet paper. It reeks of sewage. So I've been a river keeper now for 25 years, and I've dealt with what I thought were pretty big sewage spills of 15, 20 million gallons, but this is dumping about 60 million gallons a day for the last 5 days into the Potomac River. And if you do the math, we're well over 200 million gallons of raw sewage that's dumped into the river. This may be one of the largest sewage spills that we've ever seen in the United States, and nobody's really reporting about it. I've never seen it this low, even in the summer. So you can just see the concentration of sewage is really high.
You can see the bits of excrement, and whether that's feces or like it's toilet paper, it's kind of what's floating around.
I've seen people walking their dogs down here. We've got reports of fish kills downriver. This is a really important public health issue, and they need to close this river down and prevent any type of public access for people actually using this river.
It's an open sewer. Hundreds of millions of gallons of raw sewage flowing down the Potomac into D.C. instead of being put out by D.C. as is normal, figuratively speaking. Can you imagine hundreds of millions of gallons of raw sewage coming out of the state of Maryland being dumped into the rivers that feed the Potomac, and nobody's talking about it? Where's Greta? Where's Greta Thunberg, that, the little activist? Where's AOC? Where are the Maryland members of Congress, all those Democrats? Where are they? Have you heard this story? Have you? I was shocked. This has been going on for days. Look, fecal matter and toilet paper bobbing around in the water there. Yes, that creates fish kill. It destroys habitat, not to mention it's just disgusting. I guess it just seems that, well, some things should not be discussed in certain polite Democrat circles, and that is not all. Here's a discussion that should be on every news program in the country, but it's not. The biggest health threat to America and its kids, besides the sewage in the water, is ultra-processed food. Here's your Make America Healthy Again update. Listen.
This is not the American people's fault. The American people have been duped and let down by our public health authorities, industry, across the board. And this administration, and it was incredible in 60 Minutes last night, you had a leading Democrat, the former Democrat Clinton administration, FDA Commissioner, David Kessler. You have leading medical organizations, people that disagree with the administration, quite frankly, in a lot of things. They are saying this is the most important public health issue facing America today, the ultra-processed food. And they're working with the administration. We are working with them, and we are encouraging their help. There's nothing that compares to the ultra-processed food.
Real quick, you said it's not Americans' fault. Whose fault is it?
70% of a child's diet today is ultra-processed food in America. That is 10 to 20% in Spain, France, and other developed countries. The U.S. government has recommended ultra-processed food. Until the Trump administration, the dietary guidelines have said ultra-processed food is as healthy as real food. It's never taken a stand until the Trump administration, and they have incentivized it. Right now, 70% of school meals are ultra-processed.
70% of your school meals ultra-processed. Wow, some topics are just off limits when it comes to Democrats, and if asked, they will just ignore you, tell you to be quiet. You see it every single day. How about Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson, when confronted with real violent crimes by illegals, ignores the question, says, let's move on. Here it is.
Well, the real Chicagoans that I talk to, that I communicate with, mostly black and brown, actually, tell me that you don't seem to know the difference between illegal aliens and real Chicago citizens. They feel that you are siding with the illegal aliens over them in their communities. And sadly...
William, let's get to the question.
Let's get to the question. The real question is simply this. I don't know how to make it any more direct. An illegal alien from Nicaragua grabbed a woman on the north side last week.
Question?
Bashed her head into the sidewalk, knocked her unconscious, and raped her. If that had been your wife, Stacey.
Okay, all right, we're not going to answer it. Thank you.
All right. Let's move on, he says. Yeah, okay.
To deport her?
All right. An illegal alien attacks, beats, unconscious, and rapes a woman. They don't want to hear about it in Chicago because, well, they won't even talk about it. But we will. I'll be right back. All right, trying to protect the public trust, right? We try to do it here every day and bring you stories that open your eyes to things maybe you don't see or hear or know about. But misconduct, you know about that. You know that. You know that there's fraud involved. You know when members of Congress go to Washington and earn $174,000 for 5 years, but raise their net worth from $500,000 to $25 million, that something's up. Yeah, America's leaders prioritize increasing their wallets and their agendas over fairness and doing the people's work. It's pretty common every day. Michael Chamberlain joins me now. He's the director of Protect the Public's Trust. Michael, welcome to the program.
Oh, it's great to have me here, Steve. Thank you very much.
I mean, I can just sit here and go down a laundry list of public trust. You know, you see these news organizations that willfully and gleefully talk about, you know, the Russia hoax. And then when you find out that China was actually involved in meddling in the elections, you hear nothing. You hear that illegal aliens are good for America and American citizens are more dangerous. I mean, just go down the list of things. It's just nonsense. Michael, where do you want to start?
Well, accountability, responsibility, and owning up to one's own actions, those are things that, you know, we expect, and they shouldn't depend on who you are, who you know, or what party you vote for. And so as Americans, we expect our institutions and our leaders to be neutral arbiters, and we want them to look at things, standards and laws, and to defend the rights of citizens without looking at their backgrounds. Or they shouldn't depend on your political
I agree
ideology
with that.
or, you know. And so there's been so many instances recently that this trust has been broken, and our leaders have acted
repeatedly
in their own
broken.
interest.
I mean, you go back to COVID. Oh, trust the science. There was no science. It was haphazard. No, it was pull it out of your rear and just do whatever you thought would, you know, be fine, and then crack down on the citizens. You look at the SAVE Act. Yeah, I look at the SAVE Act right now. A proposal to have voter ID and prove you're a citizen. Citizenship is supposed to matter, Michael. Prove you're a citizen one time and have picture ID, which, by the way, I have to do in Michigan anyway, and so do most states. But somehow this is now racist and horrible, and women that get married can't figure out how to vote after that because apparently they're too dumb. I mean, come on. Talk about a violation of public trust, really, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned COVID. There's a lot of people have lost trust in their institutions since COVID. And one of the things that we discovered recently is that for instance, and one of the many violations of the trust through scientific integrity, that Dr. Fauci and Francis Collins and others at NIH and the other healthcare leaders in our country at the time, they knew, they had a study from Israel that showed that immunity gained from an infection was superior to immunity from the vaccine. However, they looked at the study themselves. They even praised the study internally and externally. They kept pushing the vaccines for everyone, including people who had already had an infection who really didn't need it, including young kids who really didn't need it. And this was just one of the violations during the time of COVID, and things have just continued and continued and continued.
I think one of the biggest red flags is the educational system in this country that continues to push out people like Howard Zinn, who's not a historian. He's a zealot and an ideologist. His ideology reigns over. They just teach falsehoods in schools and teach people to hate America based on the fantasies of people like Howard Zinn, right? Who's long dead, but his damage continues, right?
Oh, that's just indicative of the education system in general in this country. Unfortunately, one of the things that we've pointed out recently is the St. Paul Federation of Teachers, the teachers union in St. Paul, Minnesota. They called for a day of action and disrupt classes to protest the Trump administration's ICE crackdowns in Minnesota. Well, and they said that as a union, they've never back down from challenges. Well, apparently one of the things that they have backed down from is actually teaching kids, which is their primary job. If you look at the test scores from the standardized tests that Minnesota gives, the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment, 2/3 of the kids in their school district are not proficient in reading. 3/4 are not proficient in math. And when you look at the migrant population, the migrant kids that they claim to care so much about, 1 in 12, 8% of the students who took the English language learning assessment in Minnesota in the St. Paul School District showed proficiency. 1 out of 12.
Yeah.
So, here's a way to show how much you care about the migrant kids. Teach them.
Yeah, no trust there either. And no trust in the media. The media is at its lowest trustworthy level in my lifetime, as they should be. I see that Anderson Cooper is leaving 60 Minutes after his schlock reporting for 20 years. Don Lemon arrested for violating the First Amendment rights of churchgoers, also in Minnesota. This list just goes on and on. They don't care when people like James O'Keefe get arrested, but when Don Lemon gets arrested, somehow it's a violation of this or that. Look, Don Lemon is a hack. Let's just call it for what it is, all right? Not a journalist at all. Again, an ideologically based propagandist. No wonder there's no trust in media.
Yeah, and the Lemon case is exemplary, and you mentioned James O'Keefe, of just how the double standards that exist everywhere. There's outrage in calling his arrest unprecedented and a threat to the First Amendment.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And he wasn't arrested for being a journalist, and he was arrested for participating in a crime. Now, that's yet to be litigated or gone through the courts, but it wasn't for reporting. And you mentioned, James O'Keefe, very few people
he was arrested,
the
right?
Mainstream media, they came to his defense when they came
of
after
course
him.
not.
And
No.
Steve Baker, who was arrested after January 6th, he was reporting on the scene, and he was arrested and charged with crimes, and he eventually pleaded guilty to crimes for that.
For being a journalist. Michael, we're going to have you back
almost,
because the trust is gone. I got to have you back again because we're just scratching the surface here. Trust has been blown in America in all sorts of places, and for good reason. Michael Chamberlain, Director of Protect the Public's Trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
My honor. I'll do bite 7 here because Stephen A. Smith, I don't agree with him on everything, but I like the fact that he takes a position, he sticks with it, and he seems to be honest and true to himself, which I appreciate. In this world of lacking trust, well, it's kind of refreshing, actually. Sounds like he wants to run for president, and he actually sounds like a Republican. Listen to this.
We wouldn't have a border crisis under my watch. Hell no. We wouldn't have this crime that exists in the streets of New York. You wouldn't hear about me saying defund the police. We ain't defunding any police. I'm calling 911 when there's a problem. I know you're calling 911 when there's a problem. I'll be damned if I'm going to have less police officers out there. There's going to be more. That's me. I would focus on a flourishing economy and making sure we did everything we could, because I believe when you have something to lose, you know how to behave. When you have something to lose, you know how to behave. If you have nothing to lose. And as a result, you're willing to tear down anything, even if it's America, because you feel betrayed by a country that's supposed to be looking out for you and positioning you to thrive instead of wallow in misery and suffering. So, of course, I would pay attention to the economy. I would pay attention to all of those things.
There you go. Sounds like a Republican. Wouldn't be a border crisis under my watch. Hell no. At any rate, I invite you to join our growing community on YouTube. It's where you can see the brand new episode of Forgotten America with Kyle Rittenhouse. Interesting conversation for about 40 minutes. Ivy and I are there. All you have to do is click that QR code on your screen, become a follower, click the like button, and away you go. You have access to not only the brand new Forgotten America podcast, but all of these programs, all the segments, all the guests going back years now. And you can go back and dig deeper, listen closer. All right, it's all there for you. And we appreciate the support. So make sure you become a follower on YouTube, a subscriber, I guess is the right term, right, Anthony? Become a subscriber.
Yep, and you
on
smash
YouTube.
That like button.
Smash that like button.
You ring the bell so that
Ding, ding,
you
ding.
get notified whenever we post something.
There you go.
Yep.
And it's growing quickly. Become part of the movement on YouTube. Just find Steve Gruber. We changed the name of the channel just Steve Gruber, so it's everything we do here. Me, Ivy, Anthony, all of it. I'll be back. All right. A lot going on the national stage. Marco Rubio gave the speech of his lifetime and the best speech on defending Western civilization in years. Jose Malaya, former White House and State Department staffer as part of the George W. Bush administration. In 2010, he was the campaign manager for the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio's first successful U.S. Senate campaign. He joins me now. Sir, good to see you today.
It's great to be on here with you.
And suddenly, of the 7 countries in Central America, one is an English-speaking country. It's Belize, small country. And now it's turning up on Washington's radar as a red flag, which is weird because all of these countries in the Western Hemisphere, being El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Argentina, all turning away from socialism and toward a more populist, right-of-center government. What's up with Belize?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we forget that there's so many countries in the hemisphere. Some are very small, some fall under the radar. And unfortunately, sometimes the ones under the radar are where you see a lot of corruption, institutional corruption that exists at a granular level. So we've got issues down there related to government expropriation of assets. And those are things that the U.S. government takes really seriously, especially when it involves assets that could be national security threats. There's one particular case over a port. There's a cruise ship terminal called Stake Bank Island that the government has colluded with a bank to seize from a private owner. And the reason that that's worrisome is multiple things. One, it is a major terminal for ships right now, intended for ports. But if it falls in the wrong hands, let's assume it falls into the hands of an adversary of the United States. Now you have a place where ships can dock in the Western Caribbean. And then you've got the concerns in the region over narco behavior and other type of cartel work that happens. And there's already been reported incidents in their free trade zone in Corazal where they have actually been caught moving illegal cigarettes and other contraband through there. So while small and gorgeous, by the way, it's a beautiful place, that sometimes can lull us into a sense of danger.
Yeah, this fight over nationalizing control of telecommunications also on the list here.
Absolutely.
The government there seems to want to be an authoritarian government. When the rest of the Western Hemisphere is swiftly moving away from such things, Cuba is on the verge of collapse. They have no oil, no electricity, no food, no tourism, no hope at the moment. And you see all of these countries that are moving away from the socialist model because it's an abject failure every single time. Here's Belize seemingly going the wrong way.
Absolutely. And look, that's a perfect example. Here's an issue of data security, right? And it's not just the data security of the local residents, it's of tourists. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people travel through there year after year. And those are Americans. And there's all sorts of people that are on those networks. So again, these are serious issues. And I think what a lot of these smaller countries need to realize, for a long time they were under the radar, they could get away with, just happy talking government. And you saw it in the seriousness of President Trump's national security strategy. And now you saw it once again in the speech that Secretary Rubio made, followed by other conversations that he had. He was at one-on-one press conferences with world leaders throughout the weekend. And in one of those sessions, they asked him, well, what are some of the things that the U.S. is willing to do? And he's like, we're willing to take visas away. And we're willing to take visas away, just like the U.S. is willing to sanction. They're willing to be aggressive and do whatever they can against these individuals who are taking these actions in these countries.
Yeah, really important. Let me ask you for a minute here. Let me shift gears. And I want to talk about Marco Rubio, who you know, obviously. I said this after I saw his speech at the Munich conference, and I said that was the best speech I've seen in years on defending Western civilization. It was a remarkable delivery. Dare I say he sounded presidential. Your thoughts?
Look, it took me back. I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time with now Secretary Rubio. He was young and he was my first boss in the political world in 1996 on the Bob Dole for President campaign. So that's how long we go back. And I remember there were moments in his campaign in 2010 where he'd give a speech and you were just so moved by it. And actually it would, even though I'd heard it over and over, it would take me to tears. And, listen to that speech. I can't lie to you and tell you I didn't get a little bit choked up. He's always had this natural ability as a communicator. I think what you have today is that natural ability with a tremendous seriousness and depth when it comes to foreign policy. He arrived in the Senate, became a student of the Senate, became a student of world affairs, was very intentional about learning what was happening around the world. And for the better part of 14 years, right, or 15 years until 2025, prepared for this moment. And I really believe that everything that Marco has done in his career, going back to his earliest days in government until today have prepared him for this incredible moment where he gets to serve our nation, serve President Trump, and do the incredible job that he's doing. It's very consequential. Now, it does put him up there. Like you said, it is one of the greatest speeches that have been delivered. I read somewhere someone say that it's as impactful as President Reagan telling Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down that wall. And now that's a stretch, but you could see it, right? You could see Marco on that world stage commanding the attention of all those leaders. So I think our nation's in great hands. I think Secretary Rubio is just an incredible leader. Is going to be potentially the most consequential Secretary of State of my generation. And I believe that, yes, to your point, his future is bright. And there's a lot of time in politics, by the way. And that's the other thing that I think is important to realize is that he's very young. He's in his mid-50s. So his trajectory is still, there's a lot of runway there left.
There certainly is. And you look, there are two leading contenders right now for the Republicans, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. And I've got to be honest with you. Rubio has impressed me time and again. JD's been fine, but Marco Rubio has been exceptional. And that speech at the Munich Security Conference, an exclamation point. You compare that to what AOC had to say over there, or Hillary Clinton, it's just embarrassing for the other side. They have no bench. They have no... They don't have people that understand the world the way Marco Rubio does, do they?
I think the problem that the Democrats have is just a lack of true vision and point of view around what's happening in the world, or maybe we should say a point of view that's just very distorted by other influences that are not serious. And you saw that with AOC. She picked a fight with him, or not picked a fight, or highlighted this thing over Cowboys. And yeah, of course, there's cultures in that, in the groups that she was trying to pander to, right? But the reality of it is that what Secretary Rubio said is true. The culture of horses to begin with came from Spain, and so there's nothing wrong with admitting that our values and our traditions are Western traditions. They come from Western civilization. They come from Europe, and they're Christian too, right? That's the other part of what he said that I thought was super important, was to make that clear. And it's not to exclude anyone, but it's to make it clear that those are the values and the principles that gave us the principles of human progress, if you want to call them, that exist today. And that 250 years later, he's making the case of why we have to continue to defend them. And to Europe, he made it very clear: if you want to be a part of it, join us and be proud of your tradition and join us in this fight.
I think I know who you support for president. Jose, greatly appreciate you being here. No question, and that's a good thing. We have a very good Secretary of State. We'll see where his career leads. Jose, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, when we come back, gold and silver, like a roller coaster, whiplash. What's going on? We'll talk about it with Tom Colson after the break. Welcome back to the program. You know, if you've been watching gold and silver lately, you might have whiplash. It soared to unprecedented heights, and then it crashed, then it came back, then another small crash. But it seems to have found some pretty stable ground there. We'll see if my next guest agrees. Tom Colson, owner of Liberty Coin Service in Lansing, Michigan, joining me. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
It was all the way up to about $121 was silver, and then there was a big sell-off. And look, I don't know how these things work. I'm not even sure anybody knows how they work exactly, because it seems like there are big players involved that change the price. But it seems that silver and gold have both stabilized. Gold's right at around $5,000 an ounce. Silver is in the mid-70s. It crowded up past 80 again and then had a bit of a sell-off. But, I mean, for the average observer, this does give me whiplash. What are your thoughts on it?
It does. And one thing you said there was very right, that I'm not sure anybody knows, because nobody has all the pieces of the puzzle to know exactly where we're going. And if you looked at silver back in October and told me that it was going to be $75 in February, you'd be like, wow, there's no way that's going to happen. So we've had just a remarkable run up here over the last several months. And it's something that I think it ran too far, too fast. We have to have some consolidation here, and I think that's happening in the mid-70s. We'll see how long. It's going to take a little while for that to resolve out, and we're going to have a little bit more price discovery here to find out what the real price of silver actually is.
Right. Now, the truth is, silver's needed. I mean, you've got all these data centers and different applications, so silver's a little bit different than gold in that respect, because it's not just a precious metal. It's a metal that is used by industry, especially whether it's an EV or a data center or all this technology in my smartphone. It's needed in other places, right?
Absolutely. I think you're right there, too, that the fundamentals for silver haven't changed. There's still lots of demand for it. There's still growing demand for it. And also, it's just, there's been shortages of physical silver for years. So it's something that none of those factors have changed recently.
Yeah. Become acute. You know, I don't give advice ever on this show financially. I have experts like yourself on, but I would say this. What I learned is, if you're going to have silver or gold, have it. Don't have it in some promissory note or some form of paper, because what good is that? I read recently that for every ounce of silver that people have these shares of, there are more owners than there is silver, and that would create that would scare me, honestly. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's all kinds of reasons to own physical silver. You don't know if you own paper silver exactly what you have. And even if you have physical silver, say, stored at a facility that's not in your possession, it could be unallocated to the point where they just have this pool of silver and you don't know exactly what's yours and what's somebody else's either.
Right.
So I think physical ownership of silver and gold is the best way to go.
I agree. And obviously you own Liberty Coin Service. It's in your possession. It's in mine as well. We'll let people make the best choices for themselves. Let's talk about some coins. We offer you the opportunity, if you've got coins or collectibles, because Tom's an expert in collectibles as well over his time spent there behind the counter. Coins at stevegruber.com, the place to send your submissions. Coins at stevegruber.com. Jenny from Maine sent me this really cool-looking coin from ancient Rome, Tom, as we put it up there. Fascinating piece to me, because to me it's history. It's not just coinage, it's history. What am I looking at?
Yeah, it looks like a silver denarius of Julia Domna, I believe, who is the wife of Septimus Severus. He reigned from AD 193 to 211, so right at the beginning of the 3rd century AD. Looks genuine at a glance, looks pretty typical for one of these. I think the reverse has the deity, maybe Hilaritas on it. It's hard to say. I can't quite make out all the lettering.
Right.
But yeah, interesting coin. And yeah, from right around 200 AD, typically those sell for $50 to $100.
So you have a piece of history from ancient Rome for $50, $100. I mean, to me, I think that's just, I've got a few of these things that I've picked up from you. I think they're just fascinating. They're great conversation starters. They're great ways to teach the kids, hey, here's history. Look at this. Hold this in your hand. I just think it's a fascinating way to teach people things.
Yeah,
the next coin.
Not very much.
Yeah. And the next coin, we're in the Olympic time for Winter Olympics. This one's from Finland, 1951. A commemorative coin of some sort. Tell me about it.
Yeah, this is actually the very first coin made to commemorate the Olympics for the Helsinki Olympics in 1952. So it actually, there's a lot of Olympic coins that have been issued since then. So it's gotten to be quite a topical collector's thing to collect those. But this is the first of them. Not super scarce. I do see those occasionally. They're worth maybe just around their silver value or a little bit more.
All right. So it says here, I always find this interesting on websites and so forth. That everything says rare, as if it is. It says rare on the holder of the coin here, but it's not particularly rare. You say that came from David in Texas, by the way. The next coin comes from Lisa in Michigan, 1807, Tuscany, France. What is this?
I think it's Franscone is the denomination. It's a silver dollar sized coin that would be minted in Tuscany because in that time Italy wasn't unified, so each city state issued their own coinage. Kind of a cool design. I actually own one of these in my own collection for a time, the same date as that one as well. But decent shape for one of those, and I'd say these typically sell retail for $200-300.
So again, you can hold history in your hand. And real quickly, I only got about 20 seconds on this one. In 1964, Kennedy half dollar. Its silver value is what matters. That's the last year they had 90% silver, if I'm not mistaken. Real quickly, what's it worth?
Yeah, right now, I have, because of the whiplash, I have to do recalculate what I think it's worth. But I think right now they're maybe $32 a piece in terms of the silver value.
There you go.
At one point, I think we got up to almost $50 for one of those when we peaked out.
When it was peaking. All right, Tom Coulson, Liberty Coin Service. You can find them online, Liberty Coin Service, and coins at stevegruber.com. If you got coins or collectibles, you want to have them here on the show, we'll give you an idea of what it's worth. Greatly appreciate it, Tom, as always.
Thank you, Steve.
There you have it. If you need some more information, like I said, Liberty Coin Service. You can find them online real easy. Send your submissions. Always fascinating for me. I love this segment of the program. I'll take a break and be right back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. All right, let's check in on sports now with our good friend Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. In the game of the night in men's college basketball, 6th-ranked Iowa State beat 2nd-ranked Houston 70-67 in Ames. Nate Heisey's three-pointer late gave the Cyclones the lead for good. One other top 25 game, 3rd-ranked Duke blew out Syracuse 101-64. Cameron Boozer had 22 points, 12 rebounds for the Blue Devils. In women's basketball, just one top 25 game. 13th-ranked Iowa won at Nebraska 80-67. Ava Hayden had 27 points, 11 rebounds for the Hawkeyes. At the Olympics in Italy, the U.S. women's hockey team blanked Sweden 5-0 to advance to the gold medal game on Thursday. Abby Murphy had a goal and an assist for the U.S. Aaron Frankel stopped all 23 shots in goal. On the night, the U.S. plays Canada for gold on Thursday. And American Alana Myers-Taylor won gold in women's singles bobsled. Fellow American Kaylee Humphreys Armbruster took the bronze. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, let me ask you this. Do you think that the folks are watching the Olympics the way we have in years past? It just doesn't seem that I'm hearing as much about it.
I guess NBC says the ratings are up for over 4 years ago. I mean, I guess so. I mean, I'm watching some of it. I watched some of the bobsled yesterday. I watched the women's hockey team, after a slow start, took down Sweden 5-0. So they'll play for gold, and they're favored to win it. They should beat Canada in the gold medal game, unlike other years.
Really?
Yes.
And you know, the one thing that I did not see it, but the guy that was favored to win the figure skating world champion, you know, Mr. Super everything, fell twice.
The quad god, Ilya Melinin, I think is his name.
Yeah.
American, and he fell a number of times, I guess.
Yeah, terrible.
Finished 8th, and he basically said he choked. His words.
Yeah, well, it's a big stage, but he was just the world champion in 2025 December. So, I mean, not very long ago. And so there it is.
The Olympics are a different deal.
Yeah, they certainly are, but you don't usually see that. Anyhow, thank you, Brock, for that. Still coming today. We're going to talk about election integrity bills, the Save America Act. The single most important legislation in front of us right now, the Save America Act. Everybody supports it, except Democrats in Congress. Everybody supports it. I'll be right back.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom,
8 and 3
still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
And welcome back to it as we kick off another brand new hour here of the program, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom as we do every single day, giving you the stories and the insights you don't get anywhere else. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the suspect in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The clothing, the mask, all of it. The backpack purchased at Walmart. You'd think they could run this down. So far, they have not. Number two, ICE expanding its footprint in Metro Detroit with a Southfield lease. What does that mean for folks living illegally in Detroit? Well, it probably means you're leaving. And number three, far-left Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan made a claim that she fears President Donald Trump is trying to subvert the 2026 elections. Isn't it interesting? The Democrats lied about the Russia collusion. Christopher Wray knew that China interfered in the 2020 elections. Remember those 10,000 ballots in Muskegon, Michigan? Keep that in mind as we go forward. It was just a sliver of what we're going to learn in the not-too-distant future. China was deeply involved with manipulating the 2020 election, and yet Slot continues to sell snake oil. She did it at the Munich Security Conference. I stand here as an American senator feeling really concerned about the 2026 elections in November. He's telling us what he wants us to do. He's laying it out for us, and it's up to Americans to believe him, right? Just like in 2020, he said, if I don't win, then it wasn't a fair and free election. 2020 was not a free and fair election, Senator, and you're about to learn that, along with a lot of other folks that tried to deny it. China deeply involved with our 2020 election. Trust me on this. The information is coming. And in a way, you're going to go, that's incredible. Yeah. They infiltrated several states and databases, created fake voters, and then created mass mail-in ballots to be sent out. And yet, here we sit with Democrats like Slotkin saying that we don't want the Save America Act where you have voter ID and prove that you're a citizen before you can cast a ballot. Why would Democrats not support that? The answer, of course, is obvious. There's only one reason you wouldn't support voter ID, as 83% of Americans do. There's only one reason you wouldn't support proving you're a citizen to vote, like 83% of Americans do, more in some circles. And the only reason you wouldn't support those things because your constituents support it. The only reason you wouldn't support those things is because you want to skirt the rules. You want to be able to influence elections in a fraudulent way. What other answer could there possibly be? It really is binary, this or that. Either you support honest elections or you do not. That's why voter ID is so important. And that's why 83% of all Americans asked, including 3/4 of Democrats, support the idea of voter ID. 3/4 of Democrats, which is good. 95% of Republicans support voter ID, which is better. The vast majority of Hispanics, blacks, whites, everybody supports voter ID. Pretty remarkable. You know, even Democrats at one time supported voter ID. Let me give you we went to the archive for this one, dug in deep and found this one. Chuck Schumer, who used to be an American and believed that illegal aliens should be deported and that voting should only include actual citizens. Chuck Schumer used to believe this. In fact, he talked about it on the Senate floor. Here he is.
Everywhere people go, they're asked for a Social Security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a Social Security card. This is an anti-fraud amendment. All over where we go, people say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants or others from coming here? And the number one answer we give our constituents is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud.
Oh. So there was fraud 25 years ago, but somehow it's magically cleaned itself up. since the advent and expansion of social media, the internet, interconnectivity, right? Wrong. It's become easier to commit fraud. And that's now the only way these folks can find and keep power is through fraud. It's why swing states like Florida, Ohio, North Carolina aren't swing states anymore. By the way, you need an ID in those states to cast a ballot. Think about it. In states where you have to have an ID, Republicans win. Almost every time. You know, my question every day here, I don't necessarily ask it on the program, but I ask myself, whatever happened? Well, whatever happened to the Democrat Party over the last 20 years? I've got another treat from the archives. All right? Joe Biden, who was never elected president. I wondered about this for a while. I don't wonder anymore. Joe Biden was not legally elected president. He was elected president by mass mail-in ballots, ones that had no chain of custody in Georgia and Arizona, and yes, Michigan too. Why did they put big sheets of cardboard over the window so nobody could watch them counting the ballots? Because they were cheating. Took me a while to fully appreciate how deep and wide it was, but I understand now. I don't believe it was the machines. I believe it was the people and the mass mail-in ballots. But what happened to the Democrat Party? Here's something from Joe Biden from about 25 years ago when he was a senator. Listen.
Handbasket. We are desperately concerned about the circumstance relating to avian flu. We don't have enough vaccines. We don't have enough police officers. And we're going to debate the next 3 weeks, I'm told, gay marriage, a flag amendment, and God only knows what else. I can't believe the American people can't see through this. We already have a law, the Defense of Marriage Act, where we've all voted, not where I voted and others said, look, marriage is between a man and a woman, and states must respect that. Nobody's violated that law. There's been no challenge to that law. Why do we need a constitutional amendment? Marriage is between a man and a woman. What's the game going on here? And
the game going on is Democrats, their positions change with the political winds. They don't have any actual core principles. That's what's going on, Joe.
So was he arguing against other Democrats back then, pushing for gay marriage?
He was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he certainly was.
All right.
Fighting against it tooth and nail, and, well, now he's different. And Chuck Schumer there should have ID, a Social Security card. What happened to the Democrat Party, Anthony? You ever known that Democrat? You've never even known that Democrat Party.
No.
No, you've got people that think that illegals should vote. Illegals should be able to stay here. The police are villains and criminals are heroes. It's a little misguided. A little misguided, to say the least.
Agreed.
All right. Coming up after the break, House Appropriations Chair for Michigan, Ann Bolin, will be here on election integrity bills, the Save America Act, and more. We'll be right back. All right. Continuing on now. Joining me is the House Appropriations Chair from Michigan, Ann Boland. She's from Brighton Township, District 49. Ann, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much. How are you this morning?
I know you're in the car today, so travel safely. Of course, you've got somebody there with you.
Absolutely.
You're a longtime advocate for election integrity. The Save America Act is incredibly important. And I know that some members of the Michigan Republican team, yourself included, Speaker Hall included, and others, have been asked to talk about this in Washington. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so last week, the president has been having these legislative leadership conferences with different legislatures, and Michigan House was invited just this past week, and it's an opportunity to meet with cabinet secretaries. On top of that, I was asked to present testimony on the SAVE Act before Congress, and it just so happened to be that the days coincided, and so the stars were aligned for us to be there. And so I provided testimony in support, and then several of us, sent messages to the president thanking him for his efforts to, enhance election integrity across the nation. And that's what SAVE Act really is about. It's about adopting universal base standards across the country. They're common sense standards. There's not a high threshold to meet them. And 83% of Americans support using a photo ID to vote and confirming voter registration that you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah. To vote freely, secretly, independently, and most importantly, securely. Ann, I can't get away from this whole story from the Michigan State Police. It takes me back to Muskegon, Michigan, where I think they found 10,000 bogus ballots. Remember that?
Yes, and I think that what's important is, looking back, having served as a clerk for 16 years, I understand the ins and outs, the day-to-day operations of election administration in the state of Michigan. And what's happened over the last several years is, under the Democratic trifecta, is so many of the checks and balances in our laws have been eliminated. And that makes it very difficult to recreate election and to show these things. And the audits don't come in a timely fashion. We're not tracking ballots in the ways that we used to. For example, every ballot used to have a ballot stub on it. Well, now there's print on demand, and you don't have that. You do have a tracking system for AV ballots. We've always had it. The difference is now it's made public. So these things that they are claiming are all these additional security measures, in fact, really are, somewhat bogus. They've been there for it really true intent of them for the checks and balances in the system.
Yeah. These mass mail-in ballots, I believe, were the linchpin of fraud in 2020. And as I've told people on this program, I wasn't fully convinced at one time. I am now. The 2020 election was gamed, and it involved foreign players, not Russia, but China was involved, and others were involved, and the system was gamed. The system was gamed with mass mail-in ballots. We have to end that practice immediately. And here's the funny thing. You mentioned 83% of Americans support voter ID and only citizens voting. That's true. 3/4 of Democrats included. 95% of Republicans. The only people that oppose voter ID and proving you're a citizen to cast a ballot are Democrats in Washington. It's a weird thing. Or maybe Democrats in Lansing. What do they say about it?
Well, the Democrats in Lansing follow Jocelyn Benson, thinking, we've had the most secure elections ever.
False.
And what I think is important is we have to get back to the basics and the essentials, implement common sense reforms. And what we've seen foreign interference in our ballot measures. Right now, there is a loophole that allows foreign money to finance some of these ballot initiatives. And in Michigan, a lot of in fact, the two constitutional amendments we've had have, allowed foreign money to contribute to the cause, if you will. And we have to eliminate that. And that's why we passed out of the House a week before last measures to outlaw foreign monies on ballot initiatives. Right now, you can't use foreign monies for candidates, but, why isn't it all inclusive? Again, common sense measures that really people, unless you're using it as a loophole, I don't think anybody thinks we benefit from foreign influence, money, or even capital in our elections.
Yeah. There's only one. Let's just be blunt and honest, Ann. There's only one reason the Democrats oppose voter ID. It's not racist. People that get married, women are smart enough to figure out how to cast a ballot after they get married, I'm pretty sure. But they would have you believe that once you get married, man, it's just so hard. If you're black or Hispanic, man, it's just so hard. That's just garbage. There's only one reason.
It absolutely is garbage.
Yeah.
Yep. It's disingenuous. I think it's insulting. And, with a nation just underwent real ID nationally, I think, we have like 85% of the people in the state of Michigan have real ID, which means they've proven what their name is and that they, by birth certificate. So this, again, is not a high threshold. It's just a lot of unnecessary noise.
Let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about real ID. A lot of people are opposed to it because they think it's a national ID card. But if you have a real ID, can an illegal alien get a real ID with a star on it? Yes or no?
So an illegal, no, not in the state of Michigan.
Right.
You can't. In Michigan, we do not issue driver's license to
what I'm
illegal.
driving at, Ann, I've only got about 10 seconds here. What I'm driving at is if you have a real ID, that should serve as both your ID and your proof of citizenship. One card, there it is, done. Last word to you, 20 seconds.
Yes, in Michigan, that is the case, but different states make different rules for who they issue driver's license to. And in Michigan, we do not issue licenses to illegals.
But I mean, even real ID. Could you get a real ID to an illegal in another state? I don't think so.
Well, a real ID is just a form of a driver's license here in the state of Michigan.
All right. And I got to run. Greatly appreciate it. Be careful out there. We appreciate you.
I will. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too. All right. I'll be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. $1 billion Michigan bet on literacy in an experiment. $1 billion, right? It didn't work. Just so you know, it did not work. It failed. Over the past decade, state lawmakers funded a series of reading initiatives meant to lift Michigan into the top tier of states for fourth grade reading. Instead, proficiency fell and the state slipped further behind. Spending money just doesn't get you there. Spending money by itself does not get you there. According to the National Assessment of Education Progress, Michigan ranked behind 42 states in fourth grade reading proficiency, behind 42 states in 2015. By 2024, it ranked behind 45 states, with the share of students reading proficiently dropping from 29% to just 1 in 4, 25%. What an absolute embarrassment. It's not about the money, folks. It's about the process. Reading is fundamental. But in Michigan, apparently, we're missing that. Everyone knows the next medical crisis is just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of a crippling winter storm or a pandemic or something much more mundane like a tick bite. You and your family need to be prepared. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. The Wellness Company. Great doctors like Peter McCullough all the time are on this program. Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust. And their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you and your family safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist you in the proper use of all these medications. Rest assured knowing that if you have an emergency, you'll have antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics right at your fingertips. You can keep them on hand, keep your family safe and healthy. Go to twc.health/Gruber today and order twc.health/Gruber and order. And here's what it looks like. This is the basic medical emergency kit. Put it on your shelf, just like I do. twc.health/Gruber. Order today. You're going to save some money as well, 10% by using that promo code. Get one of these. Put it on your shelf. Sleep well tonight. I'll be right back. All right, President's Day was this week, of course. And we talk about the presidents a lot, but what about the folks behind the scenes? What about the first ladies, right? Diana Carlin is a professor emerita of communication at St. Louis University, co-author of Remember the First Ladies, a best-selling book that examines the influence of first ladies on topics such as civil rights, political campaigns, major political speeches, and the White House across the span of the nation's history. Diana, thank you for being here today.
Oh, well, thank you for the invitation. It's great to be with you.
All right, so the first ladies, yeah, they're out there. They get some press, but some were a lot more influential than others. Edith Wilson comes to mind. While her husband laid infirm, she pushed through the right for women to vote. He was opposed to it, but couldn't oppose it when he was laying in a bed and she was basically running things behind the scenes. What else did you find? Tell us about some of the interesting stories of first ladies.
Well, while you're talking about Edith also opposed it, but it got to the point where they had no choice when the women were out protesting, and then when they were put in jail and the conditions became public, he had to finally do something, and Edith was there also. She never claimed to make any major decisions or sign anything. She just said she was a gatekeeper. But as for some other very influential first ladies, Abigail Adams was incredibly influential. And in fact, we sort of describe her in our book as his public relations person. She made sure that the press was covering him the way she wanted it. She would send letters to friends with letters that they should submit to the editor. She had some friendly editors. Back at the time, there were many newspapers and they were very much partisan. So she would provide anonymous information. She also advised him on legislation, and she was the one who urged him to sign the Alien and Sedition Act, which got him in trouble and probably is what lost him a second term. In addition to Abigail, Sarah Polk, a first lady very few people know anything about. She wrote his speeches. She would read the newspapers in the morning, summarize them for him.
And say, I'm sorry, I missed who you said.
Sarah Polk.
Sarah Polk. All right, James K. Polk's wife. Go ahead.
Yes. Very powerful first lady. She controlled his schedule. She controlled who saw him. She was very politically savvy, grew up in a political household. Andrew Jackson was a family friend. So, there was somebody who very, very few people know about, but was an extremely powerful first lady. She also was mentored by Dolly Madison. And Dolly was very powerful in her own way. Dolly created bipartisanship. We think politics is kind of ugly and divisive now, but during Madison's time, there were duels. Remember Alexander Hamilton? So Dolly would have these events that were referred to as squeezes because the East Room of the White House was so packed that people literally were squeezed in. And she would have members of all the political parties there. She would go around finding out what everybody was thinking, tell her husband about it. But she was the one who got people together, and it really helped Madison get some things accomplished. So there's an early one. And Dolly mentored Sarah Polk. And so Sarah Polk picked up that bipartisanship also with her entertaining. And they were both very savvy women because they never expressed a political opinion because women weren't supposed to have them. But what they would say is, well, Mr. Madison believes, or Mr. Polk believes, or Mr. Polk has said, and then they would try out things on them. So very, very astute.
So they would have their opinions, but they would run them up the flagpole. Diana, is what you're telling me. Let me fast forward. Let me fast forward to some first ladies that are more recent. Eleanor Roosevelt obviously had quite a run as first lady, more than anybody else. What was her impact?
Oh, she was into everything. In fact, in the book, we had to devote an entire chapter to her. Just because of everything she did. As you said, she had the longest run of anyone, 12 years, unheard of, and it'll never happen again. So she was very much involved in legislation, which is something prior to Eleanor, other first ladies had not done. And you have to remember, too, by the time Eleanor is first lady, women have had the right to vote since the 19th Amendment in 1920. Now, there were women in the Western states, 17 different states where they voted long before 1920. But Eleanor testified on legislation. Eleanor took a stand on several civil rights issues. Eleanor even went to a war zone. She went to the South Pacific, to Guadalcanal, and she met with the injured troops. She met with the troops. And some of the generals in charge said that she did more for morale than anybody else could have. But Eleanor was very outspoken on civil rights. In fact, the Ku Klux Klan had a bounty on her head of $25,000.
How
Which
nice.
is,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
thousands.
didn't care for her. All right. How about Nancy Reagan? Of course, she got a lot of publicity during my lifetime. What kind of, I mean, she had a pretty influential role on Ronald Reagan, did she not?
She did. In fact, I highly recommend a book by Karen Tumulty called The Triumph of Nancy Reagan. I could not put it down. Nancy was very politically savvy. She probably had a better barometer than he did as to who he should trust and who he shouldn't. In fact, Iran-Contra, which was a controversy, during the Reagan administration, Nancy was the one who said her husband needed to go on television and talk about it. And they were smart enough to have learned that the cover up is worse than actually talking about what happened. And Reagan came through that very well. She was the one who masterminded his meeting with Gorbachev so that they would have private time together. She was very much behind the scenes. She was the one who said they should get out of the car when they were in Moscow and walk among the people. So Nancy Reagan did an incredible amount to help Ronald Reagan, and was very close to his advisors. When people needed to be gotten rid of, she often advised him to do that. And she was cast in a very negative light, but she was incredibly instrumental, and he trusted her. And she was, totally unabashed about saying, "Of course, I give him advice. I'm the first person he sees in the morning, the last person he sees at night." And
Absolutely
other
true.
first, yeah.
Yeah. Last one I want to ask about is because it seemed to me that there was a lot of influence from Jill Biden on Joe for a variety of reasons. Your thoughts on that?
Well, she actually gave Anita McBride and one of my co-authors. Anita was Laura Bush's chief of staff in the second term. She gave us an interview for our book, and because she was the sitting first lady at the time we wrote it, and she said something very similar. We talk over coffee every morning, over breakfast, and I ask him about things. He asks me about things. So she was influential, and she definitely had a hand, I think, in his decision to continue to run, and that I think will in some ways have an influence on the way that the final stories are written about her. But she did give him advice, and she claimed it wasn't advice. And Nancy Reagan said the same thing. They listened, they responded, and this was sort of what she told us in the interview. They talked
Right.
about things. He asked her questions.
There you go. Remember the First Ladies. Diana Carlin. Find that book in all the regular places as we celebrate America's 250 years, the supercentennial. Appreciate you sharing some stories, Diana. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Greatly appreciate it. There you go. Remember the First Ladies. Women have a big influence on these men that have been president, for sure. Some bigger roles than others. All right. We'll take a break and be back with a woman who has a big influence on me, Ivy, after the break. All right, jumping back into it with the first lady of this household, Ivy, is here. Ivy, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm fantastic.
You are?
Yeah.
Good.
How are you?
I'm fabulous. I mean, it's weather's been real nice for the last couple of days. Really enjoyed it. After a pretty long stretch of cold and snow, I was pretty. We went for a walk yesterday. Just a chance to get out and enjoy the weather. The snow has melted completely off the driveway, what was left of it, and so we're pretty happy.
Yeah, we love being outdoors, and so during the wintertime, unless you're skiing or doing something like that, I mean, I guess you could snowshoe, but oftentimes it's a little too brutal to spend a lot of time outside. So it's nice.
Was this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's nice as we begin to have spring, and you can enjoy the great
The
outdoors
bluebirds
again.
are back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're so beautiful.
There you go.
So I found this story, and I'm just going to play this bite for you about America's richest island. Do you know what it is?
About what island?
What is America's richest island?
Oh, richest island.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nantucket.
Oh.
So let's hear it, and then I want your reaction.
Nantucket sewer water is filled with cocaine. According to the Inquirer and Mirror, the island's cocaine markers have routinely exceeded national and regional averages. 2 spikes in October and December reached nearly 3 times the national average. Nantucket's health director says the data will help provide their behavioral health partners with actionable information.
What's the national average?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Thank you, Anthony, for that.
This is a good question. So this is actually an indication, obviously, when people go to the bathroom, this is in their system.
Yeah,
and
obviously.
And I'm thinking to myself here, Miss Innocent Ivy is like, oh, did they just decide the New Year's resolution is they're not going to do any cocaine this year, so they dumped it down the drain? No, they actually ingested it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Man, they must be disappointed about the drug boats getting blown up. Oh, it's just cocaine. It's just cocaine, say the Democrats. Whatever.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder what Martha's Vineyard comes in or some of the other places. The wealthy enclaves, apparently high use of cocaine is what I've learned from that.
Maybe Better Life
crazy.
Choices is where you should go, right?
Yeah. I have no interest, but okay.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking of, checking out that island. It sounds very intriguing and beautiful place.
I've never been to Nantucket. I've been to Martha's
At least I know
Vineyard.
that most people will be, stoned on.
Wild-eyed.
Hey,
look at this. Let's
cocaine?
go to the... Easy, fella. It's like Scarface.
It's a freaking island. Aren't you supposed to be chill?
Apparently
Anyways.
not. They're not into the gummies. They're into the blow. All right, good. That's what I've learned here today.
And you might need blow if you're going to take a ride across the Estonia Ice Road. Would you do this? It's now that temperatures are so cold in Europe, there's a 12.5-mile frozen stretch linking the country's 2 main islands.
Really?
And you can drive across the frozen sea.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've not done that road. I've spent time on the ice, but this is the time of year, man. It gets tricky. Don't be foolish out there. Oh, the ice is still good. It's been 50 degrees for a bit. We tell our kids. I mean, I just beat this in them. Do not go
Walk
out on
on
the
the
ponds.
ice.
Do not.
Well, I mean, you do say if you're going to walk on the ice, walk on the shallow end. 'Cause
Well,
at
I do
least
say
then
that,
you can-
right? You can test the ice on the shallow end where it's
Right.
about 3 feet deep, and you'll just be have cold knickers. But good Lord, it's only a matter of time, Ivy, before we get to hear the first story of somebody floating around in Saginaw Bay because they're out there ice fishing and the ice broke loose and they're out there flying, cruising around, and the Coast Guard has to go get them.
Right.
It's just a matter of time.
There definitely is nothing more frightening in nature than the sound of cracking ice underneath your feet.
It'll stop your heart. It will stop your heart. Yeah. And I've been on Mille Lacs, which is a huge lake in Minnesota, on the ice where they have these 2-story, they call them ice shanties. They're basically, houses on the ice where they got flat screen TVs and satellite television.
That's not fishing.
Yeah. No, they're drinking. Let's just be honest, and heavily, most of them, from what I remember. I might have joined them. Anyhow, yeah, this is a great time of year, but a dangerous time of year to be on the ice. I mean, how many stories you have to hear? And I showed you that video of the guy out doing donuts on the ice.
My gosh.
And, they had a little bit of ice. Oh, look, I can drive on the ice. I go, no, No, you can't take an 8,000-pound vehicle on 3 inches of ice.
What vehicle was he in?
Some sort of an SUV.
Yeah, I think it was like a Toyota 4Runner or something like that.
And I issue this warning every year, Anthony. Just keep this in mind. If you drive your perfectly good motor vehicle onto ice and your vehicle goes through the ice, your vehicle is not insured. Oh, and as a bonus, in this state, and I'm sure it's true in other states as well, it is your responsibility financially to get that vehicle out of there as quick as possible, because the longer it sits there, the bigger the price tag from the state of Michigan.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. They'll fine you. Every day your vehicle's underwater, they fine you, so you better figure out how to get it out of there, which...
This is probably the reason that I've never gone ice fishing. It sounds way too complicated.
Well, you don't
Could
drink
fall
it.
through the ice.
And you don't drink.
Too cold.
You don't drink like that, you know.
No.
Schnapps.
How would you get a vehicle out of the middle of a lake?
I have no idea, but it happens.
Yeah, you have to take like
Every year
a
it
barge
happens.
with a crane on it.
Yeah, something.
And pull it out.
Or something, you know, you got to put a diver in the water. I don't know. I don't want to find out what it takes to get a bite. I just, you know.
Is that true for like ships or boats as well?
I don't know.
wonder.
That's a good question. You know, ships are supposed to be on the water. They're probably insured.
Right.
Vehicles are not supposed to walk on water.
If your boat sinks because of negligence, do you have to pull it out?
You know, that's a good question. You know, we see videos on social media every year of boats sinking. You know, I don't know what the responsibility is.
But listen, I think we lost our opportunity to invest in something that could go big.
What's that?
There's this thing now that you can wear called smart underwear.
Stop it.
Wow.
And it is actually, scientists are using this to discover that we're passing gas a lot more than we previously thought. I mean, what
I'm
in
not
the
sure
world?
I could possibly pass anymore.
You have an unhealthy amount of streaks today.
Oh, stop it, Anthony.
Oh, that was wrong.
That was just way too much. But listen, you know, I just laughed when I saw this story. I'm going, what in the world? Why? You know, people will just wear anything to get some analytics.
Yeah.
I want smart underwear.
Yeah, that's why I need AI in my shorts. Come on.
Yeah, it's like, can we now we're connected so much that we have to wear smart underwear?
Yeah. I love you, Ivy.
Love you too.
Do not buy me smart underwear.
Heck no. That'd be frightening.
I think we're going to explore this topic a bit tomorrow, and that is this whole violence of transgenderism. I mean, this guy who murdered his ex-wife and others at the hockey game, right? It's a dude. He's got, his curlied up permanent hair. He's got, I don't know if he had a boob job. I don't know. It's Brock would use the term mentally violating. It really is. You look at this, but you look at this history. Was it last week, the violent attack that killed 9 school kids in Canada, or 10 now maybe? This one this week. You go back to the Nashville shooting at the school, at the Catholic school. And that's just a partial list. We have got to stop playing games. We have got to stop playing games with mental illness. It's getting people killed. I mean, where am I wrong? Stop playing games with this stuff because people are getting killed. And it's just awful. I mean, seriously. It is huge problem. And it's a growing problem, and it's obvious. It's an obvious problem. Let's put it that way. It is an obvious problem when you have it happen time and time again. Robert, who called himself Roberta, decided to shoot up a youth hockey game, right? So there you go. Just terrible. And we got to do something about it. Fight the good fight. Keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. Remember, only you can save America.